This is the John Hallett Podcast, powered by ClearSky Training. If you're training with us in Castle Rock, Colorado, this is the thinking behind what we do at Rocky Mountain Self-Defense and Fitness. All right, let's get into this one. Under stress, you don't rise, you default.
I know.
I really love this. People really think they're going to do a whole ton better than they actually will under actual stress. People believe that pressure hits, they'll somehow perform better than they do. They're going to think they're going to turn into Superman. They're going to be a movie star.
What's the one you always said to me? I'll rise to the occasion. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. People can fool themselves all the time. Mm-hmm. That adrenaline, the adrenaline elevates people, but it's also a little bit false. You feel like, all right, I got adrenaline. Yeah. Well, that's great if you're going to lift something up,
right?
But instincts will take over, and you don't really have any training. You can see it. People, they'll be going fast and feeling like they're doing something, but a lot of times the technique's not there. They don't actually have the actual technique. Mm-hmm. Their weapon redirection isn't there. Their defense against a knife attack isn't actually there, but they're adrenalized. So you kind of feel pretty good when you're doing it.
Right. Even their posture's bad. So it's kind of tough.
Yeah. Not a good fight stance.
Sure.
But, here's the reality. Under stress, you don't rise to your potential. You default to your training. Mm-hmm. It's what reps you put in. It doesn't matter self-defense or fitness. I mean, you can see somebody, an Olympic athlete, doing a squat clean, and the heavier it gets, their training defaults to what they've done over and over again because the load is so heavy. It's the same thing in self-defense.
Absolutely.
It's not a pessimistic thing.
Sure.
It's really a neurological thing that's happening to you.
We haven't trained your brain.
Yeah. You haven't put in the reps. People don't want to put in the reps. And, you just got to at least be consistent in your training.
Sure. So what really happens to your body under stress in a fight then? And you see it a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. Your body narrows focus, adrenaline spikes, and you default to automatic behaviors. You've practiced. I mean, I can see things like inside defenses, like a punch coming at you, and people will just overdo their defense because, again, they've got the adrenaline. They're like supercharged, and now they don't have enough reps to make a good defense. They're sweeping across. Their defense isn't a short defense because they just put in the reps. They overdo it because that adrenaline can supercharge you. And now you've kind of overcommitted in like that example of an inside defense.
Right. I remember just seeing things get smaller and smaller when I first started with you.
Yeah, under stress.
Yeah. And it just kind of was like, I'm still like that under too much stress.
Yeah. I mean, under stress. All right. And when that adrenaline spikes, fine motor skills degrade, right? You just said tunnel vision increases.
Oh, okay.
We've talked about this in another series, the auditory exclusion. That's why we say, time a couple of times in class. And sometimes you have to say people are so locked in and you think they're being disrespectful, but they're locked in. Right? And that's, people that they don't even realize, right? Time distortion occurs. That's even like, hey guys, we've been standing over here waiting for you.
Right.
Like, what's going on over here? And even that time distortion, like seeing things slow down in the fight, can happen. That's a whole nother topic.
I'm sure it's crazy.
Your decision making narrows. Like sometimes people are just focused. Like that's why I see you cannot always punch people.
Right. And how many times have I said to you, I'm like, I keep going to the same thing, coach.
Yeah.
I keep going the same thing. Like, I don't know what's going on.
That's just your defaults.
Yeah.
You got to train other things. Your body also goes into survival mode. You do not become more creative, right? You're not going to all of a sudden remember a move that you did, for 15 minutes, 6 months ago. Right. You become more automatic to what you have in your toolbox and that's it. You're not going to suddenly get better.
I wish that was the case because
everybody wishes,
but that's why
people think, they kind of think that.
Right. So that's the way you always tell me to train. And that is why repetition is important in self-defense training then, because like I got to do it, right?
Yeah, repetitions builds reliable habits, and habits are what surface under pressure. Right? We see all sorts of things when people get mad, even if we're in a conversation with somebody, and the truth comes out when they're angry. They're going to say something, and that's how they truly felt.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I default to some weird stuff sometimes when I've got nothing in the toolbox, which is kind of weird. And then the stress goes up and bammo. Yeah.
I mean, default behavior matters because, what you're doing, like you said, you need repetition, right? You need consistency, you need emotional conditioning, right? We see
oh yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah.
Right. And you need that pressure exposure,
and that's why it's so effective. But yeah, getting that emotional conditioning with people is really, I think that's the hardest one with me, getting myself under control, knowing that I'm training and not like in a fight. That was a really hard disconnect for me for a long time.
Yeah. It's hard because, you're coming to self-defense to defend yourself. Even sometimes it's just training with a partner, people getting just way too amped up and and even going, just tap out. Or communicate hey, well, okay, hey, that's uncomfortable for me, but people just fight.
But that ego's telling me I gotta win, coach. I gotta win. I gotta get out. I gotta do something.
Yeah, it's a hard thing in training to overcome. I was holding a guy in a punch choke against the wall yesterday, and just we're just working the technique. We're working nice and light, and as soon as it just get a little tight, and it's like fight. And I'm hey. You're really amping it up here. You're bringing that conversation. We're supposed to be at a conversation pace in here. And you're you're getting really strong, but it's uncomfortable. We'll just tap out.
Right. I had to do something. I'll tap, man.
You're powering through. It's okay. We're just going slow. It's okay. But being stuck in that and whatever voice is going through your head, whether it's I've got to win.
Or I got to get out.
Here, it's a mutual relationship when we're training self-defense. People have to work
together. It's pretty wild. How much you have to be together.
Yeah. I mean, it's going back to just if you're always practicing techniques slowly and cooperatively, that's what you default to. If you trained progressive resistance and decision making, that's what you're going to default to. You will not invent new skill under stress, right? You will not elevate what you've practiced all of a sudden right there.
Right. There's nothing that magically appears like an instinct that says, wrap over the arm, get underneath, stretch out the elbow or something, right? It doesn't exist.
Yeah. And it's even, that last little bit, we're doing punch choke at 6 a.m. this morning, and they're having a little bit of trouble. I'm like, guy, you've done it, a handful of times. We've only been working on this for a couple minutes, including the demonstration. It's the last 3/4 of the way home, or even the last 10%. You're there, but you just need to tweak that nuance and get the little nuances in that technique.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't rush it. Don't fight. Just play around with it. It's not going to be fantastic the first
You had
time.
us do that yesterday. Just try it. Try to get it on there. See if it works.
You guys
get those details.
We did the same lesson at noon yesterday. All right. Another problem, one-time intensity, right? High intensity seminars or, sparring sessions that are high intensity, right? They get emotional spikes. All right. They're memorable. They're fun. You're bad, whatever. I've been to plenty of seminars and they're great. All right. But it's temporary confidence, right? Default behavior requires consistent exposure, gradual progression, and habit formation. Intensity without repetition does not create reliability, right? You've got to have that, right? Both sides of that whole position there. People get tied to that adrenaline spike,
right?
And feeling good and all right, I went to this and it's great. But then, you're losing it.
Right. And you're looking for that next emotional spike and that next experience to get that endorphin hit, right? But then how do you train stress effectively in the gym? Like how do I start going about doing that?
Yeah, you got to, do it slow. Like stress is overwhelming,
Yes, it is.
Increasing unpredictability. That's where we say just like keep adding things and training decision-making under fatigue. You can do that with, hitting the heavy bag, getting people a little tired. And that's that whole, back to unpredictability.
Yeah.
We'll slowly add, go, hey, choke from the front.
Yeah.
All right, you're working, choke or a bear hug, whatever it is. Okay, you're working that escape. You work a counterattack. Okay, now the person steps away and takes a haymaker at you.
Yeah.
You slowly just kind of build upon it, slow and easy as a setup drill. And then you eventually get to higher intensity, right? And I'm not going to tell you I'm going to do step back and throw a haymaker. I'm going to step back and throw a kick. I'm going to step back and do a gazillion other things.
Yeah.
Right. And just slow and gradual.
And that's what you do with a lot of us is that you're just adding one more little stressor, one more little bit at a time. You're not throwing 17 different things where you can't figure out what to do. You're giving us these little bites and then we get to work pieces as we move forward. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, you can really work the skill. It's a setup. It's a known. Yeah. It's coming, so you can try to work it. Yeah. And then you've done it so many times that when it's unpredictable, your defense is there for that haymaker or whatever else you're training. And that's that's the hard part. There's so many things somebody can do to you. Not enough time in the day to train everything. Right. That's why we try to keep it very simple in our system. The more complex you get, the street, it's really hard to be that complex.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You've got to build better defaults. How are you going to do that? Okay. Well, I don't want to be the weekend warrior, right? 2 to 3 days per week consistently. Now I say, you miss a week. It's like you missed two.
Absolutely.
It's just all about being consistent, progressive resistance. You got to have your scenario training. You got to have decision making, right? And that's the whole, you didn't have to attack that person. You could have stepped away.
Sure.
You could have even glanced around and looked for their, friend or a potential other attacker. What's in the environment? Doing that stuff under fatigue is really hard. Talk about tunnel vision.
Oh my.
Right? And then legal discussions woven into training. Even, hey, go home and think, did you feel justified with what you did in that situation? Hey, was that the best thing to do?
Right.
Was to draw your firearm in that position.
Yeah.
Repetition builds calm. Calm builds control.
Yeah.
Right. Control protects you legally and physically. So I say to people, like, you're just you've got to be aggressive sometimes. You've got to go. But it's also calm. Like people don't like, hey, I'm aggressive, but it's also, there's a calm to it. Right. It's like the ocean wave. It's like you look at that wave roll in and it's beautiful, but when it hits and it crashes.
Right. You realize the power behind it and it feels very elegant. And being able to slow down and control oneself during the training helps a lot, especially with me building those new repetitions. I'm going to say this. Yesterday, I finally had an inside defense that I didn't have to think about.
Beautiful.
I had one, and then I had one, and I put it up, and I went, "Oh my gosh! I just did the inside defense. I didn't even think about it."
Yeah, well, I did it so many times now.
Yeah, and it finally.
When you recognize that, like, whoa, it was there.
It was there, and you know what it did? It made me pause. I went, "I had it."
Yeah, and bam!
Pretty much.
I did.
It was cool.
I froze.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed.
I'm so excited, right? Hilarious.
Yeah. And this applies beyond self-defense. Firearms training, parenting, business, leadership. Under pressure, you revert to habit. Habits are built quietly, not emotionally.
Interesting.
So it all ties in, the system, and even just, like we always say, I mean, the podcast is, life, martial arts, and everything else we talk about. It's all interwoven. You get somebody that, is, the super controlling person in business or whatever. And, they're going to try to control the whole scenario,
Right.
you know, sometimes, and they'll try to override their partner and like, it's all me.
Yeah.
And going, hey, what about the other person's rep? And they're just totally locked in, and I'll see people overrun their partner with all about me instead of having this,
Sure.
hey, I get a turn, you get a turn,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. And, you know, all that's just woven in of like being a calm person.
Yeah. And if people have an expectation that they control the reality around them, especially when it comes to violence and self-defense, they are sadly mistaken.
Yeah. We've got our book list on probably one of our sites in there. Maybe you can throw a link in the show notes.
Sure.
Or I'll get it to you for, it's like a Notion page for us anyways. What's a whoop whoop? You're like a cheerleader.
What's wrong with that? I love that stuff.
It sounds like a cheerleader to me. Nothing's wrong with
it's called an athletic supporter.
You mean a jockstrap?
Wasn't gonna go there, but yeah.
Well,
hilarious.
That's where
What's wrong with little whoop whoop?
Hey, we're talking about Zen in the martial arts. There's a good book read for you guys. Zen in the martial arts. It's actually it was I found the copyright because I was curious because I forgot. I've had it for like 30 years. Copyright I think it was 1979.
Wow.
Great book. Still all the lessons in there hold true to the modern martial artist, self-defense practitioner. All right, guys, remember, don't ask, will I rise to the occasion? Ask, what am I rehearsing every week? The safest people are not the most talented. They are the most consistent. If you want to go deeper on real-world self-defense, decision-making under stress, and responsible firearms training, everything we teach lives at ClearSky Training. ClearSky is where we break down the thinking behind self-defense, awareness, avoidance, judgment, legality, and decisive action under violence, right? That cannot be avoided. If you're in Castle Rock, Colorado and want hands-on training, that philosophy is put into practice at Rocky Mountain Self-Defense and Fitness. All right, guys, thanks for listening to the John Hallett Podcast. Train more, suck less. Leo, did you want to be on the podcast? No, Leo doesn't want to be on the podcast today. My French bulldog.